Right now on the D&M Leasing Hotline, we bring to you Dallas Mavericks play-by-play man Chuck Cooperstein. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, we're one day away from the NBA Finals, so I'm pretty dang good. And I was always curious about this. I know players and coaches will say, hey, you got to treat every game the same and everything like that. Do you ever have that pep talk with yourself, even going into the finals? You're like, hey, I got to treat this just like a regular game, just like any game.
I don't know, but at the same time, I think I get pretty worked up regardless. And for me, it's probably just a matter of maybe even tamping it down a little bit and not treat it like Game 7 until it actually is Game 7. But it's exciting. It really is. And just where this team has come from, to where they are now, and just watching them here on the floor in Boston, going through just some light stuff before the media day today. It's almost surreal.
Chuck, I'm kind of curious with like you just said, they made that trade. They've grown, they've developed as a team from that point on. But even in the playoffs, they added and grew. And I still don't think that they've kind of fully realized themselves and what they can completely be. Is that been a benefit throughout this playoffs because they can be so adaptable?
Absolutely. You got to be able to win when you can score 120 points, and you got to be able to win when you can score 96 points. And clearly they've been able to win both of those type of games, which in the past was almost unthinkable. And listen, that's what great teams do. And they have developed into a great team. And what's been interesting, certainly in the short time that I've been in Boston, is just from the Celtic fan standpoint, they'll point to the game in March, after the trade was made, but before the Mavericks really figured out who they were, and say, well, we beat them by 28 with those guys. How are we not going to do this again? And, clearly, they've not paid attention. I dare say that the Celtics staff and players have paid attention, though, and I do think there will be proper respect shown. And it's going to be a heck of a series.
Go ahead.
Do you feel like Vegas is paying attention to them? Because I
don't care about Vegas.
Okay,
really.
All right.
Vegas is meaningless to me. It really is. Because all Vegas is doing is trying to even out the money. That's all they're trying to do.
The advantages for the Mavericks, where are you finding? Where are you like, hey, this is where I know we can hang our hat on these things?
Well, it's Luka and Kyrie. I mean, they're two electric scorers. And granted, the Celtics are very defensively capable, but they haven't seen a combination like this at the same time, and playing like this at the same time. Because Luka, after a couple of series where he really didn't quite have it with the knee injury and the ankle and the shoulder and all that, he got better as the Minnesota series went on, and obviously was spectacular in Game 5. And Oklahoma City did a really good job of basically saying, Kyrie, you're not going to beat us, and you guys go find some other way to beat you. And the Mavericks managed to do that. I'm curious to see what happens here. Obviously Kyrie to Boston is a huge story, and it's a huge story here. I don't know how much of the story it is really in Dallas, but in Boston it's extraordinarily large. There's almost a Dwayne Wade level hatred. Dwayne Wade and Dallas level hatred for Kyrie here, for how everything went down. And to that point, Kyrie stepped on the leprechaun during the playoffs in 2021, and in the succeeding seasons over the last 4 years, he has not won a game in this building, and has not won a game against the Celtics, period. He's lost 10 in a row. So there's going to be a lot on him, but I think he's up to it. He's at peace. He is in the best place I think he's ever been in, even in his time in Cleveland. He's ready for this, and Luka clearly is made for this moment. So that's the biggest advantage, clearly, that the Mavericks have. And their biggest problem is going to be trying to at least slow down the Celtics' three-point shooting, because everyone who plays for Boston can shoot threes. And the Mavericks' first goal is to take away the rim. Well, if that's the case, if the bigs are going to play back, well, that allows guys like Porzingis and Horford to basically be unencumbered shooting threes, and you don't want that to happen. So the Mavericks have to devise a system where they're not going to prevent the three-point shot. That's impossible. But to maybe limit the three-point shot, say Boston, which is averaging about 43s a game, if they wind up taking 32 or 33, I think that winds up being a win for the Mavericks, and I think gives them really their best chance to win.
Chuck, I didn't know that Kyrie hadn't won since playing Boston, since leaving Boston, and I can only imagine that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown felt like they were personal shots at the time when Kyrie was kind of saying, you need to follow me, youngsters, and I know this and you guys don't. Do you know at all? I know what they say publicly, but do you know at all that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown kind of take it to maybe another level? I know it's the finals now, but have they kind of taken their game to another level when playing against Kyrie?
I mean, I haven't seen them play. I mean, this year they did. This year they were fantastic against them. You know, Tatum had 2 30-point games against the Mavericks this year. Brown had a 34 and 25-point game against them. I mean, they're really good. They're really, really good. But as we know, Tatum can be streaky. Takes a lot of bad shots. Brown, I think, is a more complete player, but it wasn't a year ago in Game 7 when he had 8 turnovers against Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals that said he can't dribble with his left hand. Well, he's kind of figured that out, I think. But they're really, really good, and I think they're motivated. Look, this is a franchise that has been to the conference finals 6 times in the last 8 years. This will be twice in the last 3 years they've been to the NBA Finals. As we say, Luka was made for these moments. The Celtics have built toward this moment. You know, usually, we all know the bromide in the NBA that you've got to experience pain before you experience the pleasure and the glory. And they've experienced significant pain. And, I'm sure they believe that this is their time to do that. And obviously, if they're going to do that, Tatum and Brown are going to be a huge part of that.
Chuck, we've seen some video highlights of the trash talk to the crowd, and I am kind of curious. You've had that front row seat to experience all that. Do you know when Luka's about to turn into a different animal on the court whenever the crowd starts getting after him? Can you sense that?
I didn't even need the crowd getting on him. I mean, I knew coming out of Game 4 and how poorly he felt he played in Game 4, even if he had a 28-point, 15-rebound, 10-assist triple-double. If that's our definition of playing poorly, yeah, I want to play poorly. But look, he didn't shoot the ball well in that game. He was 7 of 21. And the Mavericks knew they had a chance to wrap it up right away and didn't want to get on that plane to Minnesota. And to that end, basically, you just knew he was going to come out and do that. And you look at all of his Game 5s this year, following the Game 4 losses, and they have been tour de force performances. So there was absolutely no question that he was going to be great. Now, did I call going for 20 in the first quarter and the Mavericks being up 19 at the end of the first or 18 at the end of the first quarter? No, I did not. But I knew he'd be great, and he absolutely was. Yeah,
and then the other part of what PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. have added out there on the wing, we saw kind of similar style game as the Mavs were running through to the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago with Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith. But these guys have a different set of skills that they can add to it too, that just kind of changes and has a bigger window for scoring points for me.
Well, they're both longer, I think, than either Dorian or Reggie were. So there's more length on the perimeter. I think Washington's a little bit better rebounder maybe than Dorian was. Derrick is just, he's electric just in his ability to be a weak side shot blocker, which Reggie could not do.
Yeah.
But they both have had the ability to make shots when they had to make them. Obviously PJ was great in the Oklahoma City series. And then hit the huge 3 late in Game 1 against Minnesota. Derrick was terrific in the Minnesota series. I mean, he shot lights out in the Minnesota series. He's basically shooting close to 40% from 3 in the playoffs. PJ is about 36, 37 right now, but his 3-point shooting, and really both of them, because the Celtics don't want you to shoot corner threes. They take away the corner three. The Mavericks generate more corner threes than anybody else. I mean, that's going to be a tremendous matchup to look at, and just an underlying factor, certainly, in what's going to happen in these games. But those guys have got to be able to make those shots that Luka creates for them.
Chuck, we had on Brian Scalabrine yesterday, and he said winning at home, winning is winning in the playoffs, but winning at home is just better because it's with your fans. I feel like Luka and Kyrie might feed off of the hate on the road more than they do the love at home. You get to kind of know these guys better. Can you explain kind of their personalities and how they maybe thrive more on the road at times?
Well, I'll use the Bill Parcells line from back in the day. There's nothing like hearing the silence of a crowd when you win on the road, and you shut them up. There's nothing like it, and I think that's what these guys have really fed on. And really, if you look at it, the last few years, the Mavericks have not been a dominant home team. They were pretty good 2 years ago. They won 29 at home, but it's been a long time since the Mavericks were a dominant home team. Even though, everything about playing in the American Airlines Center suggests that you should be, but they haven't been. But they've been really good on the road. And I think that I just think there's a certain enjoyment that comes with quieting everybody down. And, if people are going to, especially to Luka now, if people are going to talk trash to him, that's the fuel to his fire. And I think the last thing that the Celtics want to see is a 5-alarm Luka fire.
Well, with that in mind, how exciting is it? There are certain fan shops already selling green and white Luka sucks shirts. That feels like as if he needed more motivation. That'll help.
Yeah, I don't think he needs it. He's probably laughing at it and saying, "Just watch me."
I know we're talking about this series and the players a whole lot, but both Nico and Jason Kidd have gotten rewarded with extensions in the past month or so. How deserved are these extensions, considering this duo has reshaped and guided this team?
It's a pretty obvious answer, don't you think? I mean, really. Nico and his ability to adjust on the fly is as impressive as anything I've seen from any general manager in a long, long time. He sees the problem. He addresses the problem. They knew even going into off season last year, they knew what they had to get bigger. So they made sure that they were going to find a way to draft Derek Lively. They signed Grant Williams, thinking he can be their answer at the 4, but it didn't work out. So what do we do? We're not going to sit here and wait for it to happen. It's not happening. What do? You go out and you make a trade to get P.J. Washington, and you give up a protected, lightly protected first-round pick. When in 2027, you need a little more size because Lively's been terrific, but maybe Lively's hitting the wall, and Lively has a tendency to get into some early foul trouble. And Jason, your coach wants to play big as much as he can. So what do? You go out and you get Daniel Gafford. What do you give up? A pick swap? Somewhere down the line. It's like. And now that they're here, and people had just scoffed at him for making that trade and making the Kyrie trade at the deadline last year and giving up all the draft capital, is anybody really complaining here?
Nope.
I mean, is anybody really worried about those picks for people who might be in 8th grade right now? I mean, seriously, it's. So he's done an absolutely phenomenal job of not only recognizing the issue and then going out and acting upon it, and not just hoping that something will come to fruition. You talk about being proactive. It's one thing to be opportunistic, as the phrase that has been used around here for a long time. It's another thing to be proactive and make it happen. And he's gone out and he's made it happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how could you not want somebody like that leading your team? And then as it relates to Jason, I know there are a ton of fans who get very frustrated with Jason because he doesn't take technical fouls, and that he doesn't. It seems like he's almost like a sphinx out there just watching the game. And I know he's used that phrase, and that it came back to bite him, at least in the media and in the fan base. But Jason Kidd coaches as he played, which is basically to think the game 3 plays ahead of everybody else. And more importantly, and especially in today's NBA, your relationship with your players is paramount. And your relationship with your superstars is even more paramount, because if you don't have them in your corner, you've got no chance. And clearly, Luka loves playing for Jason Kidd. Kyrie Irving adores Jason Kidd, has from the time he was a child, wearing Jason Kidd's number 5 when the Nets were going to try to win NBA championships against the Lakers and Spurs. So you got those two guys there, and they're selling out. You see them going to the floor defensively, and everybody else follows suit as a result. And the results are what the results are. 2 conference finals and an NBA finals in 3 years.
Man, thank you very much for coming on. And it sounds like you're as excited.
Yeah, he's amped up. I like
you're already amped up. I love to hear it. It definitely translates. Thank you very much for the time, good sir.
Appreciate you having me, guys. Take care.